Hey guys, wanted to take you guys on another mow with me. This one's a little bit bittersweet. It's the last mow I'll be doing at this property. I've been servicing this property for about 4 years now, but this one is just like many of the other ones that I've been talking about on the podcast, where it's a larger property. It's been sold, and because of the crazy real estate prices, fetching, millions of dollars for property. This one was sold and is slated to be demolished and going to be redeveloped into 3 houses, I believe this property will be. Like I said, today will be the last mow for this property, as it will be going into the hands of the contractor to be demolished starting next week. So they wanted me to mow it right up to the very end. So let's get started. So as you can see, it's a larger size corner lot compared to the other houses in the neighborhood. And you can see there's the development proposal with a proposed amount of lots of 3. You can see it goes all the way down there, and it's got a little bit of a backyard with a swimming pool taking up the majority of it. So let's get started. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. So basically, the time to start is now. Because if you don't, 20 years from now, you're going to look back and go, what I could have achieved and what I could have grown into already, all that time is lost. But if I start today, every day that you put into it, you're getting one step closer to what you want to achieve. Think about it this way. I'm sure you're all familiar with an hourglass, the funny sort of shaped glass with the sort of wooden base that holds it, and it has sand in one side, and you flip it over, and the amount of sand that's in that hourglass represents exactly 1 hour of time. And when you flip that hourglass over, the sand that's at the top of the hourglass goes down through the skinny part of the hourglass and then fills the equally sized bottom portion of the hourglass. And it takes exactly 1 hour, hence the name, an hourglass, for the sand from the top to completely fill the bottom. Now, what if I told you that you needed to do a particular task, and that I was going to use an hourglass to measure that time, so that we would turn that hourglass over, and you would have that 1 hour to get that task done. You would be pacing yourself, getting through that task, and using your time wisely, and you probably keep glancing over at the hourglass to sort of see how much sand was left, so you could pace yourself through that task to try and get it done. Now, what if I came to you and said, okay, now you got to do the same task, and I'm going to use an hourglass type device, but I'm not going to tell you how much sand is in it. So the sand now will not represent 1 hour. It'll just be, a random amount of sand that I'll know how much is in there, but you won't know how much sand is in there. So you don't know if that sand's going to last 5 minutes, if it's going to last 30 minutes, 17 minutes, 47 minutes. You have no idea. How would you prioritize and get your tasks done? I'd flip that over, and you'd probably start to work feverishly on what was important to get done in those tasks. And you'd keep glancing over that hourglass and looking at it, but you'd be feeling the urgency of not knowing what that represented. Now, what if we took that a step further and I told you that there was a random amount of sand in that hourglass, and you had to do the same sort of task, but now you don't get to see the hourglass. I keep an eye on it, and I'll tell you when time's up. Now, how would you go about doing that task? You would really focus. You'd really sort of put your mind out, getting away from distractions. You'd hunker down. You'd really tackle those important tasks done first, to make sure that you got, if time were to run out, you'd at least have, a solid foundation set that you could add to later. Think about this in life. We're all born with an hourglass. The absolute minute that you take your first breath, there's already an hourglass there counting down to your last breath. The only difference is you don't know how much sand that figurative hourglass represents. Nobody does. Does it represent 1 week? Does it represent 5 years? Does it represent 32 years? So that's the motivation that I use every day in trying to get my goals or dreams accomplished, and working day by day, bit by bit on it, is knowing that there's that hourglass above my head. It's counting down every single second, and I don't know how much time is left, but I'm going to try and get as much done in that time to achieve my dreams before that hourglass runs out. Time is ticking down, and that it's super precious, that you don't know how much is left, and you don't want to have any regrets as far as what you could have accomplished and living to your full potential. Another thing I always say is, people say, well, why don't you work for a regular job and not have to deal with the stress and some of the downsides and stuff with running your own business. And I always think about, well, what's my time worth? If I was, working a regular job, and say you're making, $8 an hour, or you could be working and making $20 an hour, or even making $30 an hour, but you're doing it on, somebody else's time, basically. You're renting out your time, moments of your life to somebody else in exchange for that $20, $30 an hour. And this may seem great, but the way I look at it is, patients that are, have a terminal disease like cancer, and a doctor comes and tells them, you have 6 weeks to live, or you have 2 weeks to live, or you have 6 months to live. Now, how much would your time be worth then? Would you then trade your time for 30 minutes, or $30 an hour? Probably not. At that moment in time, when you're facing your extinction, your time and the value for that time would skyrocket. You would now be going, there's no way I would trade the time I have for $30 an hour, or $40 an hour, or even $100 an hour, there's no way you would be, just saying, I'm going to go and, work on my bucket list, get as much done that I can, as long as I'm possible, or it's physically possible for me to get these things done, or spend time with these people that I want to spend time with. You would never exchange that time for any amount of money. Thinking about that with a doctor telling you have this much time to live, well, what if you don't know how much time? That hourglass, right? What if you get into a motor vehicle accident and get killed? There's no guarantees that you're here tomorrow. And using that as your motivation to say, it's so easy to become complacent and to say, I'll get started tomorrow. I need to pick a business name before I can submit, a registration for my business, or to get a website or things like that to get the ball rolling. It's so easy to just put it all off and say, yeah, I'll think about it tomorrow, or maybe next week when I got some time. But there may not be a next week. There may not be a tomorrow. You don't know. So you have to get started today. You have to get started right now. So that's it for that one. Like I was saying, last mow for this one sold. It's going to be torn down and redeveloped into 3 houses. And if you listen to the podcast, you'll see that it's something that's quite common here. In fact, if we look over 2 houses down, there was another house right here that sold. And it had a very large backyard, and it was torn down and is now being developed into about 15 houses. And you can see some of the new houses going up already at the end there. So they actually put a street down there, and this was all one person's house. It was their house here, and then that was all their backyard. Like the next house beside it, you can kind of see the house, and it's all a big backyard behind it.